it has now been factually proven that both the hand audit and the certified machine count have both been found to be in violation of Georgia election law.
This vindicates anyone who dares to have had any questions about how things went down in Fulton County. Big news yesterday out of Fulton County, Virginia. We're going to start with Joseph Rossi. Now, Joseph Rossi is one of the people who has been vigilantly demanding recounts of the 2020 election, specifically in Fulton County. You know that there were a lot of questions about how things were handled in Fulton County and whether the Secretary of State of Georgia actually did their job to ensure that after Election Day and after the recount was done, everybody could walk away with that secure feeling that even if my guy lost, at least we know that everything was done fair and square. And the fact is, there are literally millions of Americans who don't feel that way right now about the 2020 election. Well, Joseph Rossi, even though he's been called an election denier and a fascist and a kook and a conspiracy theorist, he's remained focused on just making sure that the State Board of Elections followed the law. Yesterday, in front of that State Board of Elections in Georgia, he had this to say about the latest findings with regard to Fulton County's ballot counts.
Now I'd like to speak directly to those who have fought factually, respectfully, and relentlessly for the truth over the last 3 years. As of 4/10/24, I got another one of these certified letters from the state election board. Every time I get one of those letters, my wife sets it on my desk and she says, "You got another one of those certified letters. I hope you're not being indicted this time." But anyways, as of that letter, it has now been factually proven that both the hand audit, this is really important, and the certified machine count, yes, the certified count, have both been found to be in violation of Georgia election law. Based on these findings, to those that have fought factually, respectfully, and relentlessly, I'll close with one word: vindicated.
Wow, what a moment, and pretty wholesome as well. There's one part of this that I just want to replay for you because it tells you everything you need to know. The moment when he holds up this letter from the State Board of Elections that he received in April. Here, watch again. Watch his hands.
3 years. As of 4/10/24, I got another one of these certified letters from the state election board. Every time I...
Did you see what I saw? Did you see his hands trembling as he held that up? This is not a professional lawyer or litigator. This is not some sort of media person. This is just a guy. And he's been through hell he's been put through hell for the last 3 years because he's had some simple questions about what his government in his county and in his state did with regard to a presidential election. And now he's reached this point where he has that letter and his hands are shaking with the culmination of this process and all of the heartache that he's had to endure. You heard him say, "I got the certified letter," and my wife thought, "Oh God, I hope you're not indicted again." Imagine what the machine has put this man through. And there's something so wholesome and emotional about seeing his hands shake as he held up the letter. And by the way, here is that letter. This is what it looks like, as you can see from the Georgia State Board of Election. And it has a reference here to Joseph Rossi about the case number. It says the matter involves allegations that were investigated by experienced investigators. And look at the bottom part underlined. This matter is in the violation found category. In other words, you were challenging the hand counts and the machine counts, and that there were violations to state law with how they were conducted and the findings that they discovered at the ends of those processes. And the State Board of Elections in Georgia has confirmed here that case falls under the category of violations found. They violated the law. This letter also notifies him that on May 7th there will be a hearing. And, well, if you check the calendar, that was yesterday. So what happened at the hearing? Well, let's start with the attorney for Mr. Raffensperger. He is the Secretary of State down there. You know, he's the Never Trump guy who, you know, recorded the conversation that Donald Trump had when he was president, and he was pressing him to do a legal, legitimate, and valid recount of ballots because there were so many of them that were in question as to whether they should actually be validly counted. You know, things like missing dates, missing signatures, missing ID, the stuff that we put in place to make sure that an election is done without fraud. And of course, in many states, Georgia being one of them, during the COVID-19 pandemic, that stuff was thrown out the window. So that guy, the so-called Republican Secretary of State, who clearly doesn't like Donald Trump, this is his lawyer who is speaking. He didn't even show up to this State Board of Elections hearing, but his lawyer did. And listen to a couple of things that she has to say here.
Of the presidential contest in 2020. So you will hear a great deal during this presentation about documents such as ballot images, batches loaded reports, and tabulator tapes. And all of those documentation, they're all very important. And we expect that the counties will keep those, maintain those, and make sure that they are complete. But it's important to note that they play no role in the actual tabulation of results in an election. Again, those results are determined by the paper ballots, which we have for 2020. And the conclusion of this investigation, which we will get into the details of in a minute, is that Fulton County used improper procedures during the recount of the presidential contest in 2020.
All right, let me just pause here to let you know sort of what she's saying and what she's not saying. She just said, this is a lawyer talking, so she's trying to make a case that all the evidence you're about to hear doesn't really add up to what you think it adds up to. She talked about electronic records for the ballots. And she said those electronic records are like scans of the records, right? So in case there's a fire or a flood or some sort of problem with the paper ballots, they've got a scan and they've got electronic records. That's good, right? Redundancy. But she just told you that those electronic records, those not used for the recount. Only the paper ballots are used for the recount. She also said, as you just heard her say, we expect the counties to retain all of those scans and electronic records. She says we expect them to do it because what we find out during this hearing is that there's missing electronic ballots. There's missing scans. That redundancy, that backup in case there's a problem with the paper ballots, well, the backup, the redundancy is corrupted now because they're missing. All right. But then she goes on to talk about, but that doesn't matter. Don't worry about that because we got the paper ballots, and the paper ballots is really all that matters.
The investigation also shows that there are some duplicative ballot images in the ballot images that Fulton County provided. And this suggests that some ballots may have been scanned more than once. But what cannot be decided conclusively or confirmed conclusively is whether or not those duplicative ballot images were included in the count. So we don't know for certain whether or not those were in the tabulated results. And
So what she said was, we found that there were duplicates. In fact, they found over 3,000 duplicated ballots. They'd been scanned twice, at least twice, right? But she said, sure. Over 3,000 ballots may have been duplicated when they were scanned, but that doesn't mean they were counted twice. That doesn't mean that they were double counted. But you can't prove that they weren't double counted. You also can't prove that they were double counted. All we know for sure is that something illegal and improper happened with the actual scanning of the ballots. But she wants you to believe that even though they were scanned twice, and even though we can't prove that that altered the outcome or not, one way or the other can't be proven. So therefore, just trust us. Just trust us. Which brings us to this moment, as the members of the State Board of Elections actually have their say with this lawyer and with the evidence at hand.
Does the investigation confirm that there are missing ballot images?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know why 380,761 ballot images from Election Day machine count are not available?
We subpoenaed Fulton County for all of their ballot images. We received approximately 518,000 ballot images.
From Election Day?
Those are for the recount.
Those are from the recount, but we have no ballot images for 380,761 ballots from Election Day, correct?
What was subpoenaed was the ballot images for the recount because that's what this case was about, not the election day.
Does Fulton County know why there are not 380,761 ballot images from Election Day?
As with the investigators, we have not been apprised of this allegation. This is the first time hearing about it. I have no idea what the basis of that allegation is, and so we would have to. We can't answer that at this time.
Would Fulton County agree that every vote should have a ballot image?
Yeah, good question. That woman who stood up off microphone, she's a representative from Fulton County. Let me just break down again, because it's dry stuff, probably why cable news isn't paying attention to it. They're too busy with the porn star right now in Manhattan. Oh, also, the other reason cable news isn't paying attention to it is because, well, remember that word vindicated? This vindicates anyone who dares to have had any questions about how things went down in Fulton County. If only we could do this in Pennsylvania, too, and maybe Maricopa County in Arizona, and also in Wisconsin, and also in, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. What just happened there, and the most important part, is the very first exchange in the video, and I'll play it one more time. It's short.
Does the investigation confirm that there are missing ballot images?
Yes.
Yes, period. That's the end right there. Fulton County didn't have all the votes that it claims it had. At least it can't prove that it has all of the votes that it claimed it had to do its count. That's what this discovered. This is in violation of the law. And as you heard, over 300,000 ballot images are just gone, disappeared. That's the backup. That's the redundancy. That's to ensure of what actually got counted on Election Day and also in the recount process. And by the way, when the representative of Fulton County stood up, she claimed beyond credulity that she was just first hearing about these missing 300. I have no idea what this allegation is. I had no idea we had 300. Does anyone believe that they had no idea that there were over 300,000 ballot scans missing from Fulton County? Anyone? Of course not. And no, it's not getting a whole lot of coverage. I mean, this part of the story did make it to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, but I doubt it made it to your newspaper or certainly to cable news or broadcast news. Take a look. Here's the headline. Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Fulton County reprimanded for double-scanned ballots in 2020 recount. State Election Board calls for a monitor in Fulton for this year's elections. Yeah. Who gets to choose who the monitor is? Reprimanded? Reprimanded? How about who gets fired? How about who gets arrested? I mean, last I heard, Democrats on the left are really, really concerned about protecting our democracy. Because if the guy they don't like gets elected, that's the end of our democratic process in this country. Well, if you really care about protecting democracy, how about the democratic process we use for electing people? You know, like the deterioration of the democratic process in counting ballots and ensuring that ballots aren't counted twice and that ballots don't disappear, because that's what's going on right now under our nose in Fulton County, Georgia. But, you know, there's a porn star testifying in Manhattan, so Lord knows we got to spend all our time looking at that.